Ever get stuck trying to capture a moody atmosphere in watercolor but end up overwhelmed by too many colors and complicated techniques? What if you could get that rich, dramatic look with just 2 colors? So let's make something truly beautiful, simple, expressive, and magical, because less really is more. Hi, I'm Françoise. Welcome back to my channel, your space for watercolor and watercolor pencil paintings that look loose and realistic all at once. Today's painting is inspired by a photo of a raven perched on a rock under a cloudy sky. Quiet, moody, and perfect for this season. The challenge with scenes like these is that while atmospheric, they can easily turn dull if we just copy the grays from the photo. So to keep that mood and make it visually interesting, I decided to add color in a very limited way. So I went with 2 of my favorite paints, Payne's Gray and Quinacridone Deep Gold. They immediately looked beautiful together, one deep and cool and the other warm and glowing. I did try indigo with Quinacridone Deep Gold too, and while it looked striking, those 2 together make green, and that's because Payne's Gray leans more neutral and slightly violet, while indigo has a stronger blue bias. So mix that with a yellow-based color like a deep gold and you'll get green tones. And that's perfect for another type of landscape like woods, but not for this moody sky. But we're not done yet. You're going to see these 2 colors, Payne's Gray and Quinacridone Deep Gold, have the perfect balance of transparency and temperature contrast to create a rich, expressive atmosphere. And by the way, the full real-time tutorial for this painting is available on my Patreon for a small monthly fee, along with many other paintings, so check out the link in the video description if you'd like to join. Let's start the painting, and the reference and palette are simple, but the magic comes from how we use value and color. With watercolor, you know it's always smart to begin light, especially for skies. So after wetting the sheet evenly, I applied a very diluted Payne's Gray wash as a base. Payne's Gray is great for this because it's semi-transparent and it's easy to build up in layers. And as always, I encourage you to leave some paper whites because they'll become your lightest values and help create that natural luminous effect. I tap my brush on the paper to get soft transitions between the gray and the untouched white parts. It's a great way to build cloud texture naturally. Next, I bring in a bit of Quinacridone Deep Gold using a separate clean brush. This color is highly transparent and slightly staining, which keeps its vibrancy even in thin layers. Avoid overmixing it with Payne's Gray on paper, or you'll dull the glow. Instead, let them blend naturally if you can. You can think of this painting as a simple 3-value structure. Paper white for the lightest tone, the sky highlights, Quinacridone Deep Gold for the midtones, and Payne's Gray for the darkest areas. That's already a complete balanced palette, light, mid, and dark, with just 2 paints, and that goes to show you don't always need more. Already the atmosphere starts to come alive with warm light meeting cool shadow. And this is where indigo would have caused trouble because those blue pigments would have created a green color. If you're able to work on wet like me for a long time, gradually increase pigment ratios to match the level of humidity on paper. But if not, don't worry, you can always break this down into several layers. On wet, what I like is I'm able to avoid hard edges, and that lets me build depth while the sky stays smooth. I also take advantage of that to add a loose base for the rock, but it's less critical because it could always be layered later on dry paper. Once that first layer starts drying, I lift a few areas with a clean and nearly dry brush to avoid any blooms with excess water pushing the drying paints. This lifting technique will let you sculpt the clouds, bring back some light, and control softness. It's a great way to suggest light breaking through the sky. And you might wonder, by the way, why add Crinoidinone Deep Gold into a gray sky? If you look closely at moody light, even the reference itself, some grays are subtly colored. They reflect warmth from the ground or the sun. So by bringing the warm tone in, you create color harmony that ties the sky and the rock together beautifully. I decided I wanted to add a second layer for more depth on white paper still. And this one deepens both the grays and the golds. And as I add more pigment, Crinoidinone Deep Gold layers beautifully on top of the dried grays from the first wash. Even though the layers don't blend, the warm gold over the cool gray creates that soft, glowing depth. Once the paper is fully dry, it's time to paint the raven. Here, I alternate between Payne's Gray and Crinoidinone Deep Gold, and I let the colors meet directly on paper. It's much more interesting than a flat black silhouette and a small touch that can improve a painting from reference. Payne's Gray gives a cooler, subtle tone that feels natural for the dark feathers, while the Deep Gold brings a hint of reflected light. It's especially nice where the light hits the bird's feathers, and that's why I also lift a bit of paint there. Then I move to the rock with the same technique. This keeps variety into it and it prevents it from looking flat or ending up with an even and boring mix of both colors. I use Payne's Gray to emphasize the darker cracks and forms. It's perfect for defining shapes, as you can see. And I add touches of Crinoidinone Deep Gold to bring warmth and visual interest because at this stage, contrast is key. The rock starts standing out beautifully against the lighter sky, but there's something more we can do here. Once it's dry, I lift paint again to suggest rough rock texture. It's subtle but very effective. Finally, I use pure Crinoidinone Deep Gold straight from the tube with no added water. This thick, creamy application adds richness and texture, especially over darker areas of Payne's Gray. And just a tip for you, you can do that with many other light and bright colors. Look at how the gold pigment shines through, almost like a slightly metallic autumn glow, added to both the rocks and the raven's feathers. This little experiment shows that even with only 2 colors, you can create something atmospheric, moody, and full of depth. And these techniques can easily be applied to other subjects. For example, if you'd like to learn how to use them in more complex scenes like forests, I just released my Woodland Dreams course where I'll teach you to paint special forest effects. It's launch week now, and you can still join at a special price that won't come back again, and it's a great deal. So check out all the details in the description below or this video here. I hope you've enjoyed this landscape demo. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.